Look at that. 10 hours a day. 10 hours.
That's just a taste of the endurance required on the pioneer trails. Let's dive in and find out how they conquered the American West. Our journey begins here at the Historic Trails Interpretive Visitor Center. Even the exterior of this center is an experience. The architects designed the building to feel organic, nesting it right into the hillside. It's almost like a modern take on the CCC's parkitecture. But the design isn't just aesthetic, it's strategic. The building sits high on a hill, optimizing the view over Caspar and the very trails it interprets. And look at this detail. These blue concrete blocks form a line right over the rooftop, resembling a line of wagons heading west, or maybe a route line on a map? What do you think? The trails experience starts right here in the courtyard, where we see 4 color-coded signs, one for each major route: the Oregon, California, Mormon, and Pony Express trails. Each sign shares a direct quote from an actual immigrant about this very spot, which reminds me that every mile of these great routes and every stop in Caspar was traveled one personal step at a time. Right outside the entrance, I'm immediately drawn to this bronze sculpture, the Pony Express, a striking twice life-size piece. It honors the brave riders and feels like it's pointing me toward the rich history waiting to be explored inside. Now follow the walkway to the entrance with me. This covered passage is designed to make it feel like we're stepping inside the protection of a covered wagon. The museum starts us here with a simple foundational truth voiced by a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe: we were always here. Before European contact, the estimated population of indigenous peoples in Western America was approximately 1 to 2 million. For the Plains Indians, as a Lakota elder noted, always our focal point was the buffalo. That is where our people went. The subsequent destruction of the buffalo by settlers and the military was not just a tragedy, it was an economic and survival crisis that led to mass starvation. Faced with annihilation, many tribes were eventually forced to accept government subsidies and dependence. The Native American story is a vital, enduring chapter in the history of the American West that must be acknowledged as the foundation for every pioneer story that follows. Between 1840 and 1890, around 500,000 immigrants followed the North Platte River through the present-day location of Casper, Wyoming. They were seeking land, religious freedom, or gold. Their journey was life-changing, defined by adventure, determination, suffering, and loss. This massive journey often began hundreds of miles east at the original main gateway to the Oregon Trail, Independence, Missouri, and this is where the museum takes us next. The stage is now set for the 18-minute multimedia program called Footsteps to the West, which is narrated by Wilford Brimley and built entirely on actual pioneer diaries. The true origins of the Oregon Trail go back millennia. Native American trade and hunting routes were the paths first followed, which early explorers then expanded. Stretching over 2,000 miles, this ribbon of dust and dreams became the longest overland migration route in North America. The journey was officially charted by 3 groups with different motives: mountain men seeking money, explorers charting the way, and missionaries spreading salvation. The mountain men were the earliest pioneers, blazing paths that were quickly followed by a massive wave of immigrants. Over 400,000 pioneers would eventually travel this route, seeking a new life and free land further west. This iconic 2,000-mile journey of sacrifice Adventure and loss is what defined the American West. The biggest wave of migration was fueled by farm families. Their primary motive was simple: the dream of free land and a new beginning out west. For many, this was a second chance, but it required abandoning everything familiar for the unknown. Entire families packed their lives into a single covered wagon, relying on muscle and hope to walk the 2,000 miles. The goal was the homestead exemption, a promise of 160 acres of free land if they improved it for 5 years. This was the prize driving their incredible sacrifice. They carefully selected tools, seed, and provisions, knowing they could only afford 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of cargo per wagon. But the reality of the trail was often harsh. As the terrain got rougher near places like the North Platte River, heavy items had to be abandoned. Many were forced to part with treasured heirlooms, heavy furniture, china, or even stoves, leaving painful reminders of the life they lost scattered along the route. They abandoned those cherished belongings because every ounce of weight mattered when facing the imminent danger of crossing a treacherous river. This virtual wagon ride is designed to give us a sense of the constant jostling and jarring pioneers endured. We're only crossing a river in a simulator, yet it's intense. Fun fact, the museum actually had to reduce the intensity of the ride because it was shaking people up too violently. It makes you realize how relentless the real trail was and how much worse a real river flood would have been. Surviving the river was a major hurdle, but for the pioneers, the journey was not just about suffering. It was also about the unforgettable sights that kept their hope alive. That blend of struggle and stunning beauty defined the Mormon Pioneer Trail, stretching over 1,300 miles from Nauvoo, Illinois, to the Salt Lake Valley. Unlike the Oregon Trail, this migration was driven by a single purpose. This was a forced exodus of nearly 70,000 people seeking religious freedom, a truly mass migration unlike any other. To understand the sacrifice, we have to start at the city they built, Nauvoo, Illinois, located right on the Mississippi River. This was where Joseph Smith, along with the community of Latter-day Saints, settled after being forced out of Missouri. This is the mansion house in Nauvoo, Illinois, home of Joseph, his wife Emma, and their children, and it shows the level of established life they had built in Nauvoo. But following the murder of Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram, the community found itself under a cloud of constant threat. The fear of being wiped out by vigilantes forced the entire community to leave in a hurry, pushing them out before winter was even over. The beautiful temple, a symbol of their faith, was later burned and destroyed, but the persecution was the true final straw that put them on the trail. This video shows the view from Iowa, where the Vanguard Company looked back on everything they lost. It was here, in the freezing mud of Iowa, that they suffered the greatest loss of life on the entire trail. Barely making 2 miles a day, they were forced to winter in Council Bluffs. It was the sheer determination of these first pioneers to mark every mile that led to the incredible ingenuity they used on the trail. The determination to map the trail led to a great invention. Initially, record keeper William Clayton had to tie a rag to a wagon spoke and literally count 360 rotations just to track 1 mile. Tired of counting, Clayton conceived a better way. Working with Orson Pratt and a carpenter, they invented the rodometer, a system of wooden cogs attached to the wagon wheel that automatically counted the miles. This brilliant frontier engineering made the Mormon Trail the most accurately mapped route of its time, providing essential guides that benefited every pioneer traveling west. Another example of Mormon ingenuity occurred right here in Casper. In 1847, church president and pioneer leader Brigham Young personally ordered 9 men of his vanguard company to stay behind near Red Buttes and establish the Mormon Ferry on the North Platte. They ran it commercially during high water season, earning revenue that one traveler even called as good a gold mine as any in California, with the money going directly to fund the migration of future companies. This successful operation was eventually put out of business by John Richard's permanent toll bridge in 1853, further improving passage through this vital crossing. The ultimate symbol of this incredible determination is the handcart. After all they had been through, many later pioneers made this trek by pulling their worldly goods themselves. It's one thing to read the history, but it's another to actually feel how much muscle was required to pull a loaded handcart. But this zeal was sometimes catastrophic. In 1856, nearly 1,000 zealous but ill-equipped immigrants ignored warnings and left winter quarters too late in the season. The Willie and Martin handcart companies were overtaken by early winter storms right here in Wyoming. Tragically, they ran out of food in the snow, and hundreds froze or starved. Upon hearing of their plight, Brigham Young immediately sent a large rescue party, but for many it was too late. This event remains a heartbreaking chapter, reminding us of the human cost of the trail, but the cardinal is a reminder that even in the deepest despair, hope, faith, and the promise of renewal are always on the way. What makes this area so historically dense is that this wasn't just the Oregon Trail. This was the Crossroads of the West. 3 distinct groups, driven by 3 distinct motivations, funneled thousands of people into a single essential corridor. You had the Oregon Trail, driven by manifest destiny, the dream of claiming new farmlands and extending the American empire to the Pacific. Then there was the Mormon Trail, driven by religion, a search for a sanctuary where they could practice their faith in peace, far from persecution. And finally, running right alongside was the California Trail, motivated by sheer greed. The gold rush turned the trail into a desperate race. Sadly, this desperation had a human cost. Of all the main routes, the California Trail saw some of the highest fatality rates, where travelers were known to abandon everything or even turn on each other to get to the gold first. Adding to all that, this exact corridor was also the lightning-fast artery for the brief but legendary Pony Express. It only ran for 18 months, but it was America's first truly rapid communication system. Young, daring riders raced through this route, carrying news and letters, demonstrating how vital the Platte River Road was for both migration and communication. Our journey ends near Fort Caspar, one of the last key military outposts on the trail. Originally a trading post and ferry station, it was built to protect the immigrants, serving as a critical resupply point. It was later named for Lieutenant Casper Collins, a young officer killed nearby along with other soldiers during a conflict with Native American forces in 1865. The reconstructed buildings and bridge here show the vital, sometimes brutal, intersection of military life, commerce, and the desperate waves of pioneers passing through. The Interpretive Center does an incredible job of telling these complex, tragic, and inspiring stories. But to truly feel the reality of the journey, we have to stand where the pioneers stood. Join me next time as we head to Bessemer Bend and leave the life-giving Platte River behind. We'll venture into the high desert country, exploring the famous Register of the Desert at Independence Rock and the natural wonders that guided pioneers through this final brutal stage of the trail. Thanks for watching and happy trails.